Folks, some people speculate that this crisis could be the end of libertarianism. Right? What is the libertarian answer? Is you're on your own. There is no such thing as society. The government has no right to step in. People can take care of themselves. The market will always give an answer. Folks, imagine that we had a libertarian government in this situation, and the pandemic was coming, and the government said, well, you're on your own, folks. Whatever. You know, it's your health is a matter of personal responsibility. You can choose to go out or not, but we're not going to accommodate you in any way. Now, some libertarians will say, well, it's a matter of public health, so we're okay with that. Okay, so imagine that maybe they did take the health precautions, but all these people have lost their jobs, and the government just said, you know what? You lost your job, that's on you. Right? No stimulus checks were sent out. No measures were taken to protect people's economic security. Imagine that that was what was done. There would be massive outrage. The notion that human beings are merely individuals and that human society has no collectivist nature and that the state has no responsibility to lead society, to organize the economy, to maximize prosperity, that the only role of the state is to protect private property. That idea is being thoroughly refuted. Nobody believes that. From the most far right-wing person in the United States to the most far left-wing person, everyone realizes that the state has an obligation to improve the lives of the people in this situation. And this is contrary to everything that has been extolled in the United States for decades and decades and decades. I mean, it must be said. It must absolutely be said. Must absolutely be said. Libertarianism very well could die with this crisis. There are some people who still believe it. And they really, really want to believe it. I mean, they really, really, really want to believe. The market always has the answer. No one will redistribute my wealth from my cold, dead hands. From my cold, dead hands. You know? Free markets are always the answer. No one will impose on me. I'm going to homeschool my kids. I'm going to have a gun in my house. And I'm going to hate communists. And I'm going to blame poor people for all their problems. And I'm going to, you know, there are some people that are holding on to this like true believers. But they're going to go down with the ship. They are going to sink along with the Titanic. Because everyone realizes here and now that the state has an obligation. The state has an obligation to step in and deal with this crisis. The state absolutely has an obligation to step in and deal with this crisis. And societies like China, like Cuba, have been able to respond to this pandemic much more effectively because they don't have this radical, every man for himself, greed is good, selfishness is a virtue mentality. And we're seeing that around the world. And that the individualism of so many Americans. People talk about COVIDiots. I've seen that as a trending term on social media, COVIDiots. This mindset that says, hey, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to go play baseball with all my friends. You know, I'm going to keep having church services, big church services. I'm going to just violate this. Everyone is mad at those people. Everyone is mad at those people. People that hold on to this idea, I can just do whatever I want. It's a pandemic. People who deny the pandemic say that it's fake. It's getting played out, folks. This is going to be new political terrain in the aftermath of the pandemic. It will be new political terrain. And we're going to have to think, those of us who believe in socialism and Marxism, class struggle, we are going to have to think about how we will operate in this new political terrain. The right wing is not going away, but they will be adopting a very different style of rhetoric. It's going to be an interesting transition. I believe that the results of this crisis will completely change the way Americans think. In some ways, perhaps for the better, but maybe not. Right? There could be a lot more racism after this crisis. There could be a lot more xenophobia. But collectivism and the belief that we're not all just individuals on our own, but that the state has an obligation to society, human beings have an obligation to the state, that we are a human civilization, we're not just a bunch of individuals. Collectivism will be the mindset that comes out of this. And that's pretty bizarre to think about because, it doesn't feel collective at all right now because we're all at home, not talking to anyone, not going anyplace. But coming out of this, we're going to have a much more collectivist mindset.